Eden ran like the devil was chasing her. She had a hard time running in the oversized boots, and he was gaining on her. She'd heard him yell out a warning, but she had to take a chance and try to get across the bridge before she met a train. She was about halfway across when she heard a train whistle. She stopped and looked frantically around, unsure if she'd have the time to run back to Andrew or forward across the bridge before the train had reached her. Andrew had been right. There was no room to get out of its way. It was probably the train Andrew had planned to take to Hayes. She tried to press her body flat against the bridge rail where she thought she'd be safe, but when she turned to look behind her, she knew she wasn't out of the way. The train was wider than the tracks. Eden looked over the rail of the bridge. The sun had begun to crest the horizon, and she saw it shining on the water beneath the bridge. Her only chance was to jump, even though she didn't know how to swim. Her head was spinning as she boosted herself up on the rail and prepared to jump. The train was speeding toward her on the right, and Andrew was at the base of the bridge on the left, yelling for her to run back. Why hadn't she listened to him? She was afraid it was too late now. She prepared to jump as the train got closer, knowing she'd never make it to shore. She gazed at Andrew quickly before jumping, but he was no longer there. Great. Well, she'd rather drown than die by getting run over by a train, she thought as she closed her eyes and jumped. She hit the water and kept moving downward. Everything was black. She wondered if she'd have time to surface from this far down before she ran out of breath. Finally, her feet hit the bottom of the river, stream, or lake. She had no clue what body of water it was, and she kicked off the bottom as hard as she could with the hope of getting to the top before she ran out of air. The ascent seemed slow. Would she never get to the top? Her lungs felt as if they might burst. Finally, she had to let out her air, making bubbles while doing so. At last she saw light and knew she was near the top. She kicked her feet, which seemed to propel her upward faster. Finally, her head surfaced, and she took several deep breaths before splashing around in a panic because she didn't know how to swim. A male voice called to her. "Be still and relax. You'll float if you just lay back and relax." "Easy for you to say," she said as she bobbed in the water. She saw Andrew swimming toward her. She didn't know which was worse, him catching her or her drowning. Her hat had fallen off and was floating past her as Andrew grabbed her. He gave her a shocked look before flipping her onto her back and pulling her to shore with his arm under her chin. Once they'd landed on the shore, he asked, "Are you crazy?" sounding both scared and angry. Eden was shivering from fear as well as from the cool morning breeze. "So, Edward," Andrew said, "what's your real name?" "Eden."
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.